Welcome to the Mission First People Always podcast. We're glad you're here. And now our host, Dr. Mike Patterson.
Hi, everyone. Dr. Mike here. Today, we're going to examine a new way to think about managing your career that doesn't rely on climbing the corporate ladder. Now, for some of our younger listeners, those of you in the first 10 to 15 years of your career, this concept might not be new. It's the way you've always thought about your career path and personal growth. Nevertheless, I think you're going to pick up some good tips and perhaps some words of encouragement today, so stick around. To those of us who are a little older, this is a new concept. There was a time when many, if not most of us, measured success by how many rungs of the ladder we had climbed and how quickly we did it. And depending on how you're wired, you might have become frustrated with the pace of your climb. Nevertheless, you were always climbing, or you got off the ladder. Some of us got off one ladder and started climbing another. Now, however, it's not necessarily about the climb. In fact, our guest today is going to argue that promotions aren't the best metric when it comes to creating a fulfilling career filled with meaningful work. So today, this old dog is going to learn some new tricks, and hopefully you'll benefit as well, as we all consider why promotions are so yesterday.
Welcome to the Mission First People Always podcast, where we talk about better business results, stronger teams, more successful careers, and happier lives. Along the way, we hope to bust some biases, build some bridges, and have some fun. We're glad you're here. And now, our host, Dr. Mike Patterson.
My guest today is Julie Winkle Giolone, who is the author of Promotions Are So Yesterday, Redefine Career Development, Help Employees Thrive. It's a 2022 book published by ATD Press. Julie's been committed to learning and growth since her first job teaching modeling and charm to children. Since then, she's taught at the high school and university level, managed L&D departments, directed commercial training, product development efforts, and traveled the world helping organizations and leaders optimize their only sustainable competitive advantage, their talent. She's a best-selling author, sought-after speaker, and trusted advisor to countless businesses and executives. And I'm excited to have Julie with us today. Julie, welcome to the Mission First People Always podcast. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's an important conversation for me. And in the introduction, I said, this old dog is going to learn some new tricks today because I grew up in an era, and maybe it's part of my competitive personality that made everything for me. My career was focused on getting promoted. I competed for promotions, and when I got them, I was on the top of the world for a while. And then I was looking for the next one. And when someone else got selected for the promotion, I was really disappointed and even maybe a little bit disengaged for a while. So I'm excited to learn from you. I know my audience is as well. So acknowledging the fact that I'm a bit of a dinosaur, how has the world changed and why are promotions so yesterday?
Well, first, I'm not sure that you're a dinosaur, Mike. I think that your sensibilities really represent the default thinking that many of us have when it comes to careers and career development. You know, most people, if you asked them on the spot, what picture comes to mind? It's a ladder, right? Where we're just constantly moving in a linear fashion, one rung after the other. But here's the thing, the world has changed, business has changed, we all have changed. And the truth is that when we get sort of underneath that default setting, people want a lot more than just that next role, the move, the title, the corner office. And we haven't really, until now, had a language to talk about what those different ways to grow and achieve and advance might be. So in today's environment, we know that hierarchies are breaking down, middle levels of managers are being delayered out of an organization, that boomers don't just have the audacity to live longer, but they're working longer and occupying spots on the org chart. Work is getting done more organically. So we understand that there simply are not enough, promotions, if that's the only way we're going to define success in an organization. And so the opportunity for us as individuals and leaders today is really to kind of broaden the aperture, expand how we look at careers and how we define our success around it. And once we have some new language around doing that, then there are actually infinitely more ways that we can help people to grow.
So, how do we get ourselves in? I completely appreciate what you just said, and what I was thinking as you were responding to that question is, when did this happen? Was it a COVID related thing, or did it start before COVID? My sense is this has been happening for 10 or more years. This shift toward flatter organizations, less people moving from organization to organization to gain experience. When did this transition happen?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I know I have seen it going on since I wrote my first book on this topic 12 years ago. And to be honest with you, I think it was probably happening before that too. It's been kind of an evolution of workplace shifts that have created here's the thing about promotions. I titled the book cheekily, promotions are so yesterday, but they continue to be part of the organizational structure and psyche. They will go on. The problem is when someone's ready for the promotion and the role's not there, or the role is there and they're not ready, or, the role is there and somebody's readier. It's the dissatisfaction that I think we're now seeing heightened. And that may be, in part from COVID and the Great Resignation, quiet quitting, all of the phenomena that we've seen since then, that has begun to shine the light on the potentially damaging effects of defining career development, career success so narrowly. Because, the number of promotions is finite. And if that's how we're going to feel successful, very few of us at any given point will be feeling that sense of success. And so when we look at some of the data, especially in the COVID and post-COVID times, we see that a lot of folks left their employer because they felt like they weren't growing. And in some cases, that might have been simply that narrow definition that growth looks like a promotion. So the beauty is, if we can expand the definition of growth and development and advancement and success beyond just the promotion, then we're able to satisfy that innate, intrinsic need that humans bring to the workplace to grow.
So the key is growth, but let's get practical for a minute here. Unless you're a commission salesperson or you're an equity partner in a business, don't I have to move up in the organization to make more money? And isn't it true that, at least in some cases, people that are higher in the hierarchy, my manager's manager makes more money than I do, or should make more money than I do. So if I want to make more money, and there's some people listening who say, man, I got bills to pay. I need to make some more money here. I appreciate the growth message and I want to grow too, but I need to make some more money. Houses are expensive. Everything's getting more expensive. Do I need to be a manager to make more money?
Yeah. And that really is where the rubber meets the road. The whole discussion around compensation, because you're right. Traditionally, we've married the promotion with the additional comp.
Right.
And as a result, there have been some pretty unnatural incentives for people to move up the ladder. I mean, you mentioned into management in particular. How many technical people who are exceptional technical contributors have been incented to move into management for more money, only to find that they don't like the work, it might not be their strong suit, and we lose them to the competition. So what's been interesting is, and this has been going on for some time too, as HR professionals are really looking at this challenge, they're getting increasingly creative when it comes to providing the kind of compensation that will allow people to thrive at whatever that looks like. So, for instance, many organizations, even before the COVID years, they had developed technical tracks where a technical person could continue to grow and deepen their skills and their strengths and their contributions and their compensation, have that grow without having to jump on the management ladder or that track.
Okay.
Um,
I was just going to ask you, Julie, can you uh, give us an example of some of your clients? And I just want to make sure everybody listening knows that Julie is a consultant. She's a speaker. She works with organizations to help them think through these issues. She's not just an author, she's a doer. Are there some organizations, maybe some of your clients you have helped build these more creative compensation models that keep more people in the game and growing financially?
Oh, for sure. And even beyond my clients, just last week on LinkedIn, the chief learning officer of Shopify posted a magnificent video talking about how they are breaking the mold when it comes to this, how they recognize that it's unnatural for a technical person who wants to do that technical work to be forced down a path that may not be as well aligned just in service of compensation. And so they are building the system that allows them to compensate people based upon deeper skills development and greater contribution. So the performance and the growth comes together as a way to create new metrics that allow people to continue to earn more. And they even refer to it as the infinite gain.
Okay.
And so we're going to see more and more organizations getting really creative about short-term comp, long-term compensation and incentives, pay for performance, pay for skills development, really get creative in terms of how to build a compensation package that supports the individual in a tailored and personalized way.
So if I'm part of one of these more progressive organizations, I'm fortunate. I can grow and align my own interest, my skill development with increased compensation opportunities. I love that. But what advice do you give people who maybe aren't in that sort of organization? Are there some, if I'm a young employer or in my career at some point, maybe first half of my career, how should I start altering my thinking about my career and my career development if I'm not in one of these progressive organizations? What are some alternative ways to think about that?
Well, I know for myself, a lot of my thinking as I was developing, and not just, as a young professional and throughout my career, was what is the priceless value that I can get out of this role? Now, in some cases, it's money. In some cases, it's not. But in each role, there can be magnificent, rich opportunities for developing new skills, for acquiring new experiences, for visibility and an expansion of one's network. So even if I'm not getting the comp that I think I deserve, how can I balance that with those priceless dimensions that I can then pack into my portfolio and take down the road when the time comes, when I'm ready?
Do you encourage people to change organizations, find a new job? And again, I'm reflecting my history here. When I was early in my career, it was frowned upon to job hop. That was the expression we used. It's way outdated at this point. But now people are encouraged to. I sense people are encouraged to find opportunities, no matter even if it means leaving their organization, to grow and develop and pursue things that are interesting and meaningful to them. So, what advice do you give? I'm a young professional. I'm a professional sitting across the table from you, Julie. I've got recruiters pinging me all the time with opportunities. What do you say to them?
Well, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, you and I kind of grew up in the same sort of environment where, yeah, it was frowned upon if you were hopping around every year or two. A recruiter or a hiring manager would look at that and think, okay, well, what kind of flakiness is this? Now I've heard from folks they're concerned that their stay place is too long and that gets frowned upon. So the dynamics are definitely in flux. It is not, a red mark on one's career to cultivate and curate a variety of experiences in a short period of time. I guess, traditionally, folks have had to, in many cases, leave their current organization to go to another organization to get the salary pops that they're looking for. And then they'll hop back, in some cases years later, that much further ahead. Increasingly, the organizations I'm working with are really looking at, again, ways to creatively offer the kind of compensation that's required to retain the talent that folks are that they really need in order to deliver results. And so I guess what my advice would be to a professional who's getting those pings, who's contemplating a move, is before you do that, if you are happy in your role, if you've got a manager or supervisor who's supporting you, if you like the mission of the organization, don't make any assumptions about what the organization might or might not do, and cannot do for you. Have a conversation. Go to your manager, to the HR professionals, and have a conversation about the alternative opportunities that are out there. And ask that curious question about, what might you be able to do to help me here? I think people may be surprised at the responses, especially organizations who are working so diligently right now to retain the talent that they need.
Should managers be proactive in having these conversations with their most talented people rather than wait until they come to them saying, "Hey, I've got this other offer and I'm really thinking about leaving," or "Here's my resignation letter." Should managers, should talent development professionals be thinking ahead and coming to the most talented people and say, "Hey, we've got a bigger picture here to consider. Let's have a conversation."
1000%. Absolutely. And that's kind of the philosophy behind the notion of stay interviews. I guess maybe I would just expand upon what you're saying. Absolutely. Leaders should be reaching out to their top talent and having conversations about what part of your job are you loving? Where are you getting the greatest satisfaction? What do you still want to learn? What do you want to achieve? What does success look like for you? Those kinds of conversations give a leader the fodder they need to construct an employee experience that is personalized and tailored to each individual, to create the kind of experience that even if I'm getting pinged with some extra money from another organization, what I'm experiencing here is so rich that I don't want to even hear about the alternatives. But in addition to doing that with your top talent, I think where sometimes leaders miss the mark is not having those conversations with all of their people.
Mm.
Because the people who are top talent today were part of the massive middle at some point in their careers. And so having those same kinds of conversations, regularly checking in with folks about their experience of their work and how they're growing and how else they want to stretch themselves and what the organization and the leader can do to create the kind of environment that allows them to use their signature strengths and their talents and really to thrive. That's how we take those folks who are up and comers and move them into the ranks of top talent.
A couple thoughts came to my mind as you were sharing there. One is, or two questions, I guess. One is what should the rhythm of those conversations be? Is it a quarterly check-in? Is it monthly? Is it once a year during performance appraisal time? My guess is it's more frequent than that. And then the second part of my question is related to this is a very relational and trust-based conversation, I would think, because if I'm an employee sharing back with my manager, maybe things that aren't terribly rewarding about my current role, if I don't trust my manager, my fear is it's going to be used against me. Can you comment on those two aspects of this process?
You bet. And let's address the second one first, because you are right on, Mike. The notion of psychological safety as a foundation for career development is absolutely accurate. As I've worked in this space, what I've really come to understand is that career development at its core is a relationship, and relationships thrive in the presence of that kind of safety. So as a leader, you need to earn the right to muck around in something as intimate and personal as someone's career and goals and loves and wants and aspirations. I mean, that is deep and heavy stuff.
Mhm.
And so as a leader, if the relationship doesn't already have a foundation of trust, that's the first order of business. Build that level of trust so that people feel safe, that they can have a candid conversation, that they can tell you the truth about their experience so that you can work together to change that for the better as necessary. So psychological safety, trust, that rapport and relationship is the foundation of career development. In terms of cadence, it used to be that we would, and I remember even my best manager in my whole career, we'd sit down once a year for like 2 hours and plot out every, twist and turn of what, my career development plan was for that year. And then it would get stuck in a filing cabinet back in those days, a folder on our desktop these days, not to be brought out again till next year this time. So the annual one and done approach is definitely done. But even organizations that are doing this on a quarterly basis or on a scheduled monthly basis, so much better. But we're still treating career development like a task, something that we can do and check off. And so if I work with leaders, what I really try to encourage folks to think about is, how do we infuse these conversations organically into the ongoing relationship and dialogue that we're engaged in? Because we don't have to wait for a meeting to do a quick stop down on what did you learn during that particular challenge or experience? Or, what would you like to be doing more of? So managers who I think really crack the code on this, and by the way, are building that psychological safety we were just talking about, are the ones who can take advantage of just those organic, casual moments that occur to be able to check in with people and take the time that they're already spending, because time is always, the issue we hear about from managers and employees alike when it comes to development. Take the time you're already spending in conversation with folks and infuse a career development slant. Just bring a little bit more value from that conversation. So it becomes sort of an ongoing thread through all of our interactions with people.
So is that something you talk about? I love that organic, ongoing, free-flowing, friendly, the nature of those conversations. whenever you call a meeting with someone to talk about career development, it seems heavy and formal and I don't know, uncomfortable, perhaps in some cases. Maybe that's my experience speaking, but on a daily, weekly, just organic basis. Hey, did you enjoy that project? Did you like it? What did you learn from it? Would you like to do more of that? Would you like to do less of that? That just feels right. Um,
Right.
do you talk about that in your book? Your book is called Promotions Are So Yesterday. Who's the book geared to? And I want it's a great book. I want people to get their hands on it. So what's in the book that would be useful to managers, and what's in the book that would be useful to people who are thinking about managing their own careers? And maybe there's something in the book for talent development professionals as well.
Yes, yes. Thanks for asking. And the first question that you asked about, do I talk about this notion of the ongoing conversation in this book? I actually don't. In Promotions Or So Yesterday, that is a chapter in my first book, Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, which is coming out in its third edition later this year.
And
Uh,
you wrote that with one of the greats from the talent development industry, Bev K, right?
Yes, I was really fortunate to get to partner with Bev, and we co-authored Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go. And it was just a terrific experience. And the book has become really a foundational set of concepts in many organizations. So, and that book really focuses on how to have new, different, ongoing, organic, fresh conversations. Promotions Are So Yesterday is sort of that next level in terms of, all right, so when you get the skills to have the conversations, what are you talking about? And as I mentioned when we first started chatting, the default setting for most of us when it comes to career development is the promotion. That's just been the language that we've used, the mental model that we've had. And it's tremendously limiting. And so what Promotions Are So Yesterday does, it offers a new framework. I call it the multidimensional career framework that expands the definition of career development beyond the climb up the corporate ladder. And it includes 7 other dimensions or ways people want to learn and grow and progress. And so the book is really geared toward managers, leaders, executives. It's a great tool for talent development managers who want to start engaging differently with employees, who want to help those employees become aware of this broader palette with which we can paint our career success, and then work together to figure out ways forward that are meaningful and satisfying and create a really sticky, magnetic sort of culture.
What do you think is in your work with clients and as you interact with people who have read the book, of those 7 dimensions, which one is the kind of the most surprising to people or the least known? And they read that and say, man, that was super helpful. Hadn't thought of that before.
Well, what's really interesting, we've been researching the multidimensional career framework for the last couple of years, and we are now over 10,000 data points. And what we have found that I think is most supporting is what's at the highest level of the ranking and what's at the bottom. So what we have found since the beginning and during pandemic days is that when folks are invited to think more broadly, when we expand the vocabulary and give them the opportunity to think about things like contribution and competence and connection and challenge and competence and contentment and choice, when we give them a way to think about it more broadly, what we found is that contribution is the number one most interesting of the dimensions across the board in aggregate, across ages, levels in the organization, genders.
And what does that mean, Julie? Contribution. How did you define that in your research, or how do people define that?
It speaks to the desire to be of service, to make a difference, to offer one's talents and skills, to leave things better than they were, to leave a legacy depending upon where we might be in our careers. People get up in the morning really wanting to show up and make a difference. And to me, every time I run the data, it is just such I don't know, I find that to be such hopeful news for leaders, because what leader among us wouldn't like to cultivate more contribution, to create the conditions where people can do what they naturally want to do when they come to the workplace? And when we're strategic and intentional about it, those contributions can contribute to people's growth. They can give while also getting new skills, experiences, a broader network. So it becomes a real, virtuous cycle almost. So that's one thing that's really surprising to people is contribution is number one. What is dead last of these 8 dimensions is that climb up the corporate ladder. What
Wow.
we found is that when people have that broader definition, they are more interested in all of those other dimensions than the climb. And again, for a leader, so many leaders I talk to are reluctant to have these career conversations because they think everybody wants a promotion. They can't give it to them. So let's not, stir the pot here. Truth is, people want all of these other dimensions more. And these other dimensions are squarely within a leader's sphere of influence. They can work with manager or with employees to make that happen for them.
That is a hugely important message. You've done the research. This isn't stuff that you've just pulled out of the air. You talked to 10,000 employees, and were these people across all of the generational cohorts, or were they mostly younger people? Where are these people in history, so to speak?
Yeah, we're looking at everything from 20 somethings through 60 somethings plus. Men, women, choosing not to define. We have everything from CEOs to frontline employees. So it really spans the waterfront.
Wow. Well, that is a huge insight. And this is the kind of stuff you talk about in Promotions or So Yesterday. So I'm going to again plug your book, Julie. You've been very kind to join us today and preview your work. But people need to get the book and dig in and take their own notes and nuggets and put them into practice. And with that in mind, I warn you this question was coming, that when we get near the end of our conversation, I'm going to invite you to do what I invite every guest to do, and that's give the audience one piece of practical advice that they can put into make useful right away, something that will make them a better leader, a better team member, a more content employee. You pick, but give us something practical.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a practical action, actually. What will make us better leaders, better team members, better collaborators, happier people is having a deeper understanding of what's really motivating us, what's really interesting to us, so that we can find more of that in our current role. And so to do that, we actually have, and maybe you can put in the show notes, Mike, we have a free online self-assessment that allows you to take 10 or 15 minutes to go through a series of questions, and it'll generate a report to you that's emailed to you that will highlight what of these dimensions, these development dimensions within the multidimensional career framework are most down to least interesting to you. It'll offer some analysis and some insights into how you might be most interested in growing and engaging with your work right now. And then with that knowledge, you're going to be well armed to have a really meaningful conversation with your own manager to be able to start taking action in the direction of the kind of experience and the career and the success that is going to be most satisfying for you.
We will most definitely put that link in the show notes as well as all of the additional ways to get in touch with Julie, to follow her work, a link to buy the book. Julie, thank you so much for being a great guest on the Mission First People Always podcast. I hope you'll come back again, maybe when you're the new edition of the previous book comes out. We'll have you on to talk about that as well.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed and have been encouraged by this conversation with Julie. Here are some of my biggest takeaways and some of the stuff I believe. Enjoy the journey. Make the most of every opportunity. Align your work with your purpose and build strong relationships along the way, because you don't make this journey alone. And if you're doing all these things, you'll be a lot less worried about getting to the top and more focused on doing great work. So until next time, stay focused on your mission, but always, always, always take care of yourself and take care of your people.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to create a stronger, more people-centric and empowered culture for your organization, visit drmikepatterson.com.